If you want to learn how to speak English well, listen to English every single day. Second, conditional.
If she studied more, she would pass the exam. If they had more money, they could buy a new car. If it rained tomorrow, we would stay indoors. If he worked harder, he might get a promotion. If I were you, I'd take the job offer. If we lived in Paris, we'd visit the Eiffel Tower often. If she knew the answer, she would tell us. If I had more free time, I would learn to play the guitar. If he spoke Spanish, he could work in Spain. If I felt better, I would go to the party. If we had a bigger house, we'd invite more guests. If they didn't argue so much, they'd be happier. If she weren't so shy, she'd make more friends. If I were taller, I could play basketball professionally. If we didn't have to work, we'd go to the beach. If he had a car, he would drive to school. If I were rich, I would donate to charity. If it weren't so late, I'd call her. If she tried harder, she might succeed. If you practiced more, you'd become a better singer. If I knew how to code, I would build an app. If we took the train, we'd arrive earlier. If he weren't afraid, he would try skydiving. If she wore glasses, she'd see better. If I had a dog, I'd take it for walks every day. If we weren't busy, we could go hiking. If I lived closer, I'd visit more often. If you asked nicely, they might help you. If I didn't have a cold, I'd go to work. If he had more time, he would join a club. If we had bikes, we'd ride through the park. If she liked horror movies, she'd watch this one. If I spoke French, I'd move to France. If it snowed, we would build a snowman. If they invited me, I would come. If I weren't tired, I'd keep studying. If he played piano, he'd join the band. If I knew her better, I'd ask her out. If she didn't work weekends, we could hang out. If I were a superhero, I'd save the world. If we found a good deal, we'd buy it. If he didn't smoke, he'd feel healthier. If I had a passport, I'd travel abroad. If they trained more, they could win. If she spoke up, things might change. If I cooked better, I'd invite people over. If we stayed longer, we'd see everything. If I weren't allergic, I'd get a cat. If he didn't forget, we'd be on time. If she cared, she'd show it. If I were more confident, I'd apply for that job. If we had more information, we'd decide. If I didn't have to work, I'd take a nap. If he remembered your birthday, you'd be happy. If I saw a shooting star, I'd make a wish. If she baked a cake, we'd eat it together. If I were good at drawing, I'd become an artist. If it weren't so cold, we'd go outside. If you loved me, you'd stay.